G'day, it's Robbie again. Well, today we're going to be looking at chucks. Chucks for Chinese lathes, basically, or any lathe which has got a peg type, a recess type chuck on it, chuck mount, which is basically on a Chinese lathe. They have a stepped driving plate, and the centre of the step, the peg part, goes into the back of the chuck, and then the driving plate itself bolts up on the perimeter in 3 places. That's the standard setup for a Chinese lathe. The small ones anyway, up to sort of 10, 12 inch, and that's pretty much the way most of them come, with just a stepped driving plate. Okay, so that chuck just bolts straight onto the spindle. But what if you've got a different chuck, a non-standard chuck, maybe just a plain back chuck with no step in it, no recess? Well, then you have to use a backing plate to actually centre the chuck correctly, and you can make them up pretty easy. And on my 4-jaw, 6-inch 4-jaw chuck I've got here, which is non-standard, that's the standard 5-inch 3-jaw that came with it, came with the lathe. But I never had a 4-jaw, so I bought a decent big 4-jaw. I mean, you've got a much bigger throat in it, and it's a good size for a 10-inch lathe, 6-inch, and it's as big as you want to go to easily handle chucks. Once you start getting over 10-inch, they get damn heavy. So on the back, you can see I've got a backing plate I made up out of some 1080 steel plate that I got from a local engineering company. That was just offcuts. If you've got one near you, Chatham, they quite often sell you the stuff. You'll have to buy it, probably new steel price, but it still works out cheap. I think that was $15 from memory. And if you look, I've just machined that up, and it's just this chuck bolts in through the front, which is a good way to go. It makes it really easy to set these things up, front mounting, and that leaves you nice clean back. And then you just set it up for the same mounts as on the 3-jaw, the standard chuck. So you can see that the recessed peg is exactly the same. The depth doesn't really matter. It can be deeper. It's just a locating peg, really. You can see where I've centre punched it around here just to move it over a smidgen, or just a tiny little bit out, and just to stop any run out. So okay, if you're going to do this, you can do it in steel, make up your backing plate in steel, or you can from scratch, or you can buy one from the lathe man, Mr. Lathe Man, in cast iron, and then machine it up. And of course, cast is a lot easier to machine than steel in big diameters. It's not going to stress your lathe out as much. But I mean, steel's no problem if you use common sense and don't overload the lathe. And anyway, so there are your 2 options: cast iron or steel. Now, if you're tight like me and you don't want to spend money, as you would have guessed by now, I am a Scrooge. And if I can do it cheap, well, I'll do it cheap. So, okay, that was a cheap backing plate. But what if you don't want to spend any money at all? Is it possible to do a backing plate without spending any money? Well, yes, it is, and I'll show you how. And I'll show you what you need. And what you need is one of these. And that's the motor out of an old treadmill. And there's a lot of good stuff in treadmills, Allen headed bolts and motors and screws and pipe. And there's the motor. And look at this motor. What's it got? It's got a humongous great flywheel on it made out of cast iron. And yeah, I can see your brain starting to tick over, and I think you're thinking what I'm thinking. Wouldn't that make a great backing plate for a chuck? And it does. It does make a great backing plate for a chuck, and I've actually made up one. And now the restriction on it is, of course, is it too big for your chuck or too big for your lathe? You've got to obviously get one the right size. So one size doesn't fit all, and these come in a variety of different sizes. That's a big one. Here's a little one. Now that little one there, that's a nice piece of cast iron that you could use to make up a backing plate for a smaller chuck. It's not big enough for that size for 5-inch, but it's big enough for the smaller sizes, got plenty of thickness. Once again, it came off an old treadmill, and that didn't cost me a bean. That was junk day. So here you go. That's what you're looking for. And as I said, you're going to have to get one that does suit the size of the chuck you're working on. So I'll show you what I've done already, and you can see how effective it is. Okay, well, here's what I've done. This is a 6-inch 3-jaw scroll chuck that I got at Trash and Treasure. It's an old pommy job, and it was pretty warm when I got it. It had bell mouth, and I did a video showing you how you can grind out the bell mouth by following the steps in the video, and it's good enough for a lot of work I do. The main reason being it's got a nice big centre and excellent. I think it's probably even bigger than the 4-jaw, so it's great if you want to put something in it but not go right through the spindle. And on the back, that backing plate is cast iron, and that's a treadmill flywheel. So, didn't turn out too bad. So, there you go. I'll take it off and we'll look at the back of it and just see how it looks when it's been machined up. Well, my $25 Pratt Bernard is off the driving plate. You can see the peg, the centering peg that goes into the back of the backing plate, the centre of the backing plate. The depth doesn't matter. It's just got to locate it accurately. And you can see that, I mean, this is a flat back chuck, perfectly flat back. And so this converts it into a step, a peg type back. And you can see it bolts up with 3 Allen bolts. And these are the 3 holes that you have for your driving plate. They align with those positions there. Also, whenever you make up a backing plate, you always mark it with a reference point to correspond with the one on the driving plate, so that when you put it back together, it always goes back in the same position, the position at which you machined it. That way you're going to have it accurate. And you'll also notice that I've also centre punched the backing plate and the chuck. So if I ever take the backing plate off, I can always put it back on the chuck in the same position. You do that and you'll maintain your accuracy. But as you can see, it's a good old chuck for 25 bucks. I can't complain. It's very serviceable. So 25 for that. Backing plate cost me absolutely nothing. Just scrounge around on junk day. So there you go. I hope you found that interesting. It's just a little tip. Save yourself some money, and it's a good machining job to do. Get some experience. And at the end of the day, you can put some sort of humongous chuck or some small chuck on your cheap Chinese lathe. Okay, that's it from me for now. I'll see you next time. Cheers.